All right, here we go for Chapter 6, Recruiting for High Quality Talent. So we've kind of laid the foundation in terms of structuring jobs and job analysis, a legal foundation for EEO, attitudes, job characteristics model, stuff like that. And now we are to the point where we have to do one of the basic kind of bread and butter activities of HR, and that is how do we get people? If part of our job is, as we've said, is kind of right person, right skill set, right place, right time. Um, how do we get them to come to us? So much of Chapter 6, you can think of it almost in a framework of like marketing. You're trying to market your firm, trying to market the job, and trying to get a lot of, if you will, customers who are interested in that product, which is the job. So a few definitions here really quick. Whoop, there we go. Talent acquisition. That's just getting the right high quality talent the right time that we need. There's nothing complex about it. It's just acquiring talent. Recruiting. Recruiting is not selection. They're related, but they're very different skill sets. Recruiting, like I said, is more about marketing. Selection is much more about the science of finding the right skill set, attitude, heart, passion, ability, stuff like that. Recruiting is about generating a pool of qualified applicants. Keywords in there: generating a pool, not a person. So you don't want just one applicant for the job. That would be not a very good recruitment end. And also qualified applicants. So you can get a lot of people to apply to jobs, but how do you get the right people, right, to apply to jobs? A model, a way you can think about it in terms of at a macro level, what we think about are these things. So one of them, we think about financial limits. That is the cost of recruiting itself, or the compensation that we're going to attract people with. There's always limits. You don't want to start out on recruiting until you have an idea what those are. Time limits. When is this needed? If you are in kind of a culture where the habit is, I need someone yesterday, then you're going to have to reframe the culture and get out ahead of it and say we can't always be batting cleanup. We have to know in advance. It's just strategic planning. It's fine. But usually when someone wants to hire somebody, they need them right away. The statement of work is there and they need someone. So this is one area where I tend to bump into managers that are usually pushy. They say, does your HR person do a good job of getting you the right talent? They say, yeah, but it takes forever. It takes like a week and a half. That's not forever. That's blazing fast. So you're managing expectations here. Keep an eye on labor market dynamics. That is, in high unemployment, you're more likely to find people. You have more applicants for your jobs, which means you're going to need a more stringent selection system. In a low unemployment market, much like the one around the beginning of 2020, you will see that you'll have fewer applicants for the job, which means you can't be passive. You can't just throw out a marketing campaign for a job and wait for them to come to you. In many ways, you're going to have to go to them. How the talent fits in with the business strategies, where to get quantity of talent, and of course quality of talent. That's in your things like minimum and preferred, is what we call the minimum requirements for the job and the preferred requirements for the job. So all these things we're kind of thinking about all the time, right? Yeah, you ebb and flow on each of them. If your CEO, CFO says we have limited financial limits, then you need to be realistic with them, with either about time or about the quality of talent you're going to get. If they say no, you have more broad financial limits, then you need to say, okay, then we can do it faster. You need to not slow down. So each of these kind of affect the other. And there's 3 or 4, I suppose, kind of main areas that constitute employment today. There's always what you call the core workers. Very few situations, everything's going to be temporary. These are the people that almost like create the culture. They onboard, they socialize, everybody there. This is like the meat and potatoes of your company. The people who clock in and clock out 40 plus hours a week, who are there year after year after year. Core workers enjoy things like benefits and other benefits of being a member of the organization. The other 3 little bubbles you can see there, they're not really members of the organization. I mean, they're working there, but in a sense they're trading time for money. So you have a core group of workers, and that's kind of your steady business model. And then when you get a big order, customers go crazy, the economy's doing good, you may bring on temporary workers or anybody else in this category for a while to say, you know what, we're rolling along here at 500 people. Our business, our demand is now saying we should have 600 people, but I'm not confident that's going to sustain. I think it's a blip and it's going to come back down to normal levels. Well, then don't go hire 100 core workers because you're going to have to lay them off eventually. It's more expensive, etc. So in that case, you might consider temporary workers, independent contractors, or working with what's called the PEO, or Professional Employment Organization. Of those three little bubbles, it's about 1 in every 5 people in the United States today are in some kind of non-core worker situation. And they're often by choice. They're not like, I'm stuck with that job, but like, that's the job that I want. I want to have flexibility to come and go, leave a company, join a new company. So about 20% or so. Temporary worker is just that. They do much of what a core worker does, but they do it they're on a contract for a fixed period of time. There's tax implications, there's compensation implications, but a lot of times we like this as an organization because we can say, hey, you've been great, we love you, but we actually don't need you anymore. And you can let them go, didn't pay them benefits, it's fine. Independent contractors are usually a bit more precise about what they're doing. So a temporary worker might still have a broad job description. An independent contractor is saying, like, I'm giving you, it's called a 1099, right? It has to do with taxes, don't worry about it for this discussion. But basically, from January 2020 until November 2020, this is the project, this is the scope of the work, the statement of work that I have for you. These are the deliverables. This is how much I'm going to pay you. So like you can think of an independent contractor almost like a home builder. Like, I'm paying you to build my house for these 6 months. Here's a contract of how I'm going to pay you. Here's what I want it to look like at the end. They are independent. They decide their own work when they do it, set their own schedule, stuff like that. But you agree on the outcomes of the work. The last one, you can lease workers from other companies, or what's very popular now, especially in the tech sector and medical sector, are what's called PEOs. PEO is a professional employment organization, and we have a ton of our grads go to work for PEOs and they love it. In a sense, they're like headhunters. So where Microsoft says, hey, I'm willing to pay $90 an hour for this programmer, and if you can go find someone who's good, who meets my requirements for $80 an hour, then I'll pay your shop the difference. So it works out well. There's incentive pay. The compensation system is structured, but the PEO takes a chunk of that, and in a sense, what it is, it's an organization outsourcing recruiting. It's saying, hey, look, we're really good at programming, we're really good at engineering, we're really good at repairing transmissions, whatever it is that business does. We're not really good at recruiting. We're good at what we do. So why don't we pay you, Mr. and Mrs. PEO over there? You go find us people. We'll write down the type of people that we want, the knowledge, skills, abilities. You go find us, and we'll pay you to go find them, rather than hiring a recruiter and paying them to go find the talent. So that's the PEO. This is like each one of these boxes. We typically think about core workers, but in any given organization, you got people that are there for just a little while. There are some motivation challenges with that, of course. There are some turnover challenges with that, of course. But super helpful, especially in a kind of a fluctuating economy or fluctuating business sector, to match staffing. So as we do that, we're always thinking of, in each of these 4 areas when we're drawing people, always thinking of how do we reach certain types of people, especially if we're doing it ourselves. So we've gone through EEO. You can see, I hope, the implications there. If all of your recruiters are the same age, same race, same gender, same language, etc., you're going to get probably people like that who connect. So you want a diverse pool of recruiters that you're deploying out to whatever college campuses or career fairs that reflects your desires. Not only reflects your current company, but reflects the desire, the strategy that the company would like to be. I put these up there just to think. This is when I look at this, I think, okay, persons with different racial and ethnic backgrounds. Then I pause for a minute. I go, okay, for this company, how will you find them? How will they know that you even exist? Because at the end of the day, you post a job, and of the 90 applicants, 88 of them are Hispanic. To that, I would say, you're hitting one market maybe pretty darn well, but you missed a bunch of other markets. And they go, well, those people don't apply. And I say to the managers, why? What is it about your firm? What is it about how you're recruiting, where you're recruiting, who you send to recruit, that you only attract a certain subset of the population? Same thing, age, parent status, disability. I mean, you can see it, veteran status, doesn't matter. Whatever you put in there, the question is, how will they know that I have a job, right? Are they going to be on LinkedIn? Are they going to be on Craigslist? Is everyone from this category going to go to my company's website and take a look at it? How do I send a recruiter to them where they are likely to be, whoever them or they is? So anyway, they're not mandates, but you look at the organization, you go, okay, whatever's in my organization should probably reflect whatever is in the marketplace. So if I'm at Starbucks in Ellensburg, Washington, and 15% of the population is Hispanic, I would expect about 15% of Starbucks employees would be Hispanic. If it's 12%, fine. If it's 18%, fine. If it's 2%, that's where you go, what's happening here? Why are we not reaching that population? Or if it's 50%, you go, okay, we're hitting the Hispanic population really well. Who are we missing? And it doesn't mean anybody did anything wrong. It's just a constant kind of strategic question of how do we make sure we get as big of an applicant pool as we can handle, which will increase our odds of, during the selection process, finding good talent. A couple other things on diversity, generational differences. This one is fun. These are huge stereotypes. And so you may look at this and go, well, that's not really me. I get it. But stereotypes often exist for a reason. In this case, I think there's data to support there at least maybe archetypes. Baby boomers preferring traditional posting. So if you're trying to attract baby boomers, the average age of your applicant is 26. You might go, hey, wait a second, we want to broaden that out. So more traditional job postings on a website, on a job board, even if it's not an electronic job board, something like that. I've seen it at community events. I mean, you can go a lot of different ways. Traditional postings, submit a cover letter, submit a resume, stuff like that. Generation X prefers work-life balance programs. It's, again, it's a stereotype, but it's often true. People a little bit older than me. I think I'm kind of right on the cusp between the two. But Gen Xers are like, I've seen my baby boomer parents work 60 hours a week for 40 years and get a gold watch and a pension, and that's not the life that I want. I want flexible schedules. I want to spend time at my kid's soccer game. I want, like, fill in the blank, whatever it is, more of a balance than just straight economic growth. You can design jobs. Remember the job characteristics model. You can design jobs to accommodate that. Generation Y, meaningful work, like to have an impact. And the stereotype, again, is lots of questions. So IBM is actually kind of ahead of the game on this in terms of managing Gen Y and millennials. And that is, they just tell their managers, just be ready for a lot of questions. So if you make a decision in a meeting and someone from this generation asks you, like, why did you make that decision? Try not to take it as like questioning authority or questioning judgment, but just innate curiosity. Like, I want to know how we got here. Anyway, across the board, this is more about how the earlier one was how do we create a recruiting package to hit certain people. This one is more about how do we create jobs that incentivize people that, like, that'd be a fun kind of job from across the spectrum of generations. In terms of the labor market, so this is what a recruiter is usually keeping their eye on, like who's out there, who's interested. There are active job seekers, people who are out applying, and many times those are not the people you want. Best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So if they're out there applying as they're working at their current company, good chance when they get to your company after a little while, they'll be out there applying. So active job seekers are great, but you really love passive job seekers. Someone who's happy in their work, committed, good relationships, etc. And if you can pull them away, especially if you can steal them from your competition, a little cherry picking, that seems to be desired. So I'll show a graphic here in just a minute, but different elements of the labor population. The very top, the big blue here, you see labor force population. That's everybody. Everybody that would be interested in a job if I used every single recruitment strategy, including knocking on their door. You're not going to have that many applicants, right? That's a labor force population, everybody out there. Applicant population, that is, who would I reach using any particular recruiting strategy? Meaning, if I was going to go heavy on college career fairs, I'm going to hit a certain group of people, that's my applicant population. Or if I'm going to go heavy on my company's website, there's a certain group of people that will actually go to your company's website, that's your applicant population. you can see the challenge here is you want multiple recruiting strategies for a broader applicant population, but multiple recruiting strategies means it's going to cost you more money. So it's constantly a balance. The third one down is the applicant pool. Those are the people that actually applied to the job, and they're evaluated for selection. An applicant pool, we'll get to record keeping here in just a minute. We generally hang out those records for about 3 years of an applicant. That's where we're going to do things like an EEO-1 form. You've probably done that. You applied to a job on one page, and the next page they said it's voluntary, or this will be stored separately, and ask like race, age, stuff like that, school you went to, maybe stuff like that. So that would be information they'd store separately. That's to report at the end of the year on an EEO-1 form, where organizations report to the government, this is who applied to our jobs this year. This is the data that we have. That's the applicant pool, and then of course you get all the way down to selected applicants. And as you're going through the process, one of the words, the phrases you'll hear HR people use a lot is like document it. Like whatever you do, and document what you did and why you did it. And that's kind of our paper trail. I'll tell you, personally, not out of the book, but just you to me. Often what I see is managers creating documents they should not have created. So if you're going to tell a manager to document something, you better teach them how to document it, what kind of words to use, not to use, stuff like that. Because as soon as it's a document, it's subpoenable by a court. It can be used as evidence for you or against you. So as you're making documents, and I fired this person for these reasons, if you are a manager, if you're an HR person, you say, let me see that document. Let's make sure we got this right. So anyway, we usually hang on to, in general, usually hang on to HR records for about 3 years. Now that everything's technology, you can save it even longer if you want to. If somebody applies to your job, you'll see a little asterisk somewhere on that website or applicant tracking system that says, your application will be kept on file for fill in the blank, 3 years, 6 months, whatever it says. And that just means they may take your application and apply it to other jobs if there's a keyword match in it. Okay, building the applicant pool. Internal recruitment and external recruitment. Pretty straightforward, right? Internal is inside the company. So if I have a job opening that's anything other than entry level, there's a guy named Jeff Pfeffer. He's down at Stanford, and he has this like real classic, great article many years ago. It's called The 13 Practices of High Performance Work Organizations. One of them is promotion from within. And he says basically like take care of your home first. Meaning somebody wants a promotion, or there's an opening, whatever, for anything above entry level, like give your own people a chance first to see if they're qualified. And while that makes sense, it shows loyalty, they're going to respond with loyalty, reciprocate. There's also this challenge of, we have an opening, we want some creativity, or we want some new blood. You hear stuff like that. So it's not an easy decision to make. His argument, though, is over the long haul, that's always better to do internal recruitment first, and there's probably a bumping at that point, and then replacement is at entry level. I'd say if you like that strategy, don't only consider that for managers. Even if there's an entry level position that has come open, you have many other entry level employees that maybe they don't like what they're doing. Maybe they're great employees, work hard and they fit well with the culture, but they just don't like their job. So one of the policies I've seen at organizations is you can post a job internally, or you can post a job internal-external. So there was not even an option to post it only externally, allowing kind of everybody to have a chance, and then pass the word, right? So they know the job, they know the job exists. Technology and recruiting. This has been absolutely insane the last maybe 5 years, 10 years. I remember when LinkedIn came out, it was like, okay, that's cool, whatever. Then they came out with LinkedIn Premium or something like that, where you could buy a subscription. Now LinkedIn Premium includes LinkedIn profile data mining. And so if you have a LinkedIn Premium account as an organization, they're pretty expensive. You can go to your dashboard, go to LinkedIn and say, I'm looking for someone who's done embedded software engineering. And then I want 5 years of experience. I want them to have a degree from this kind of institution and at least 2 years of their most recent job. And that job needs to be an organization of 1,000 people or bigger. Go. And it just spits you out everybody on LinkedIn, and you start blasting. And that's how you go find the passive job seekers. So LinkedIn is not the only one. It's the one I'm more familiar with, only because the last several years I remember, one student got a job off of LinkedIn where a recruiter contacted them. I was like, oh, that's interesting. The next year, 5. The next year, 10. I think this last year, probably a third of our graduating class was getting offers and lots of interest by being contacted from PEOs, the headhunters, on LinkedIn. So it's a very, very fascinating process how that's kind of revolutionized the industry. But the big part of it is, like I said, it allows you to hit people that aren't interested in quitting their current job. It requires more sales to them, building relationships, of course, but it allows you to hit those kind of passive job seekers, which can be a big win. Technology, I wanted to bring this up. I think we know this. The idea of someone handwriting an application and bringing it down to an office really limits the applicants that you can get. We love technology. People can apply from all over the world, and anybody can apply. We hate technology because people can apply from all over the world and from anywhere to apply. So let's say we know that there's a keyword match, right? So if you have a decent system, what happens is if I apply to a job as a sanitation engineer, a garbage truck driver in San Francisco, and I upload my resume. It's a curriculum vitae, is what we call it, right, in academics, and it's gonna have on there, a bunch of research publications and classes that I've taught and stuff like that. No one's ever actually gonna see my resume because what was in my resume didn't match the job posting, right? And they're looking for as much match as there is. The higher the match, the more likely that a manager will actually see it and review it. A decision maker will. Well, of course, job seekers know this, and so we'll go over here. Let's just do this really quick. Okay, so here is a senior human resources assistant job description for Amazon. So I'll scroll through this and I'll see, okay, execute content, operations customers, policy administration, site launch. So I'm kind of looking at these keywords here. Talent meetings, that means something in Amazon. Internal communications, oh cripes. I don't have a lot of this on my resume, and they're going to be looking for it. So what I might do here is just take this job description, maybe all the way down to the preferred qualifications, and I'll cut it, and I'll go over to my resume here, and I'll just kind of paste it in. And now I know, of course, this is not a resume, and it's not going to work out very well when they see that on my resume, right? But remember that a computer sees ones and zeros. A computer sees code; it doesn't see actual like content or letters, and it's looking for that ones and zero binary language match. So if I take this and I make it all go away, now I can. Oh, I'm not doing this right. You get the idea. Make it all white. Make it disappear. What I can do, if I figure out how to use my computer, is I can make it disappear and then finish my resume. I can say awesome at beer pong or whatever the heck is I want to say, and I can submit this, and no one even actually sees that I've just pasted the job description in there. Does that work? Well, sort of. If you have a good system, a good database that's doing this, what it's going to do, and you'll see this like Microsoft has this. If you try this at Microsoft, it's going to say, well, we're going to take your resume with all your pretty pictures and all your cool formatting, and we're gonna translate it into ASCII or ANSI format, standard 10-point Arial, make everything black font, white background. And so this will come up, and a manager will get it, see that you've pasted the job description in there, and they'll toss it out. Most systems have that at this point. But this is one of the bears about having everything electronically uploaded in terms of your resumes and applications, because it can create a ton of unqualified applicants. And if you don't have an advanced vetting system, then it just takes you forever to go through it. So tech is great, but I've watched a couple of YouTube videos on TED Talk, on artificial intelligence, and they all say technology is going to be the end of us anyway. So I grew up watching Terminator 2, Skynet, so I totally believe it. Okay, internal sources. I want to make a comment on this. I had a conversation with an HR consultant last night on the phone, and he was saying, I got to my new job, And I said, well, how do you like it? He goes, great people, but they're like 30 years behind. And he said, what do you mean? He said, they don't even have an applicant tracking system. And I thought, yeah, that's pretty funny. So an applicant tracking system is basic selection. I mean, it's a hammer and a nail for framing. I mean, it's like you just have this. An applicant tracking system, an ATS, is where the person will upload their application. They can log in at any point, see where it is in the process. You have the resume, different keywords, upload it so you can apply to different jobs for them. And if they make it through the screening, somebody logs in and hits next, they make it through. If they don't make it through the screen, you can come in and you can click that general letter that says, we thank you for applying to our job. We'll keep you in mind for other opportunities, blah, blah, blah. Basically, thanks, but no thanks. All that's done electronically through an ATS. If your company doesn't have one, if you're hiring more than a dozen, 20 people a year, super helpful to have just in terms of efficiency. Internal recruitment, what do I want to say here? Oh, yes. I had a situation, I was trying to hire human factors engineers, which is just kind of a really weird group of people. They design crew ops, they design like the cockpit and everything that the pilot touches inside of an aircraft, commercial aircraft. And so you have to have people that understand like psychology, for instance, how people respond in emergency or not situations. They have to understand ergonomics of the chair, keeping them awake and blood flow and etc. They have to be a pilot, so they know how pilots respond and what they're used to. And they have to be an engineer because they're designing all the different systems and everything's in the cockpit and the buttons that the pilot touches. So it's a really weird group of people, and I can never find enough of them. And that senior manager was always whining at me like there's not enough and you're moving too slow. And so we implemented this thing called, it was an employee referral program. And I came in and I said, okay, there's 5 levels. I said, okay, hey, look, we're going to pay you, I think it was like $1,000 if you refer someone to work here and we hire them as like a referral, as a finder's fee, as a thank you, being an ambassador for the brand, you know, Boeing, we're gonna pay you $1,000. And nothing happened. And I was talking with one of the engineers and he was just like, hey, that was cute, what you did. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, $1,000. We all make like 150,000 plus a year. It's not worth $1,000 really to pick up the phone and bother our friends. It's like, oh, okay. So we increased it significantly, and within about 6 months, we were for the first time where we needed to be in terms of staffing levels. And what was interesting to me on that is I know other professors who teach management, right? If you like golf, you probably know other golfers. If you play bridge, you know other people that play bridge. Well, if you're a human factors engineer and you're a pilot, you know other pilots. Right? It's almost like dealing with clusters or social clusters, social network analysis. So if there's a particular group of people that you're finding, like, I can't find this skill set, you go find the people in your current organization who know them, and you incentivize them to reach out to their social network. That's a current employee referral. It works, doesn't always work, but can work. It can also create problems. Think about social clusters. People are hanging out by way of race or age, gender, etc. Then you tend to attract only that type of person. So there's some diversity challenges in there as well. External recruiting sources. I guess what I want you to see on this slide is if you hit them all, it's going to cost you a lot of money. If you hit none of them, you're going to have a what's the technical term there? Crappy, I guess. Applicant population, not super high skill set, most likely because it's not very broad. So the question is, of this job that I'm looking for, where am I most likely to find that person? If I'm looking for a plumber, I'm probably not going to just go all in on LinkedIn, right? I'm probably going to go to a labor union, and I'm probably going to go to Craigslist. If I'm looking for a petroleum engineer for an entry-level job, I'm probably going to go to a college campus if it's entry level for someone who has that unique degree. So anyway, each one of these just needs to fit with whatever the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, abilities that you've put on the job. Okay, how do we know if we're doing well when it comes to recruiting? If we're hitting the right people, stuff like that. There are metrics, everything kind of post-enlightenment, I mentioned this earlier, kind of driven by metrics, and they tell us, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? There's a number of them that hit all kinds of different things from time to quality to quantity, etc., satisfaction in the process. There's a few that I really like that I want to point out here. Yield ratio, selection rate, where do I want to go? I want to go here because this kind of has them all. Okay, so what this says is, and each one of these to me, if you're recruiting, like you care about each one of them. Total initial contacts. If you know, I have a friend who sells insurance, and he goes, I can sell insurance anytime I want. It takes about 2 or 3 hours for a policy. I can do it right now. I said, how do you know that? And he says, well, I know from I'll throw out some numbers. I can cold call through any numbers. It used to be a phone book. It's not a phone book anymore. I can start cold calling people, and I know that of every 150 phone calls I make, I'm going to have 50 people answer the phone. And of the 50 that answer the phone, I'm going to have 4 conversations, and I usually land 1 of 4, 2 of 4 for a meeting, and 1 of those 2 actually buys it. So all I have to do is go call 150 people or 100 people, and I sold an insurance policy. It's just a matter of time. So you're going to see that if you examine the data, you'll see that. If I reach out to 500 people, that I hire 3 jobs. Well, you're starting to get your ratios down when a recruiter says, hey, I worked really hard today and I made 3 phone calls. No, actually you didn't. That's moving way too slow. That's not going to cut it just for our numbers. So there's drop off, or what's called mortality, at each step. Total initial contacts in this case is 100 to formal applicants 30. So what that means is either your recruiter got 30% of them to apply, or your recruiter determined that only 30% that they got to apply was actually qualified for the job. So there's usually your biggest drop off, right? From those who apply to those that you interview, those are the ones you get to decide. So going from initial contacts, the bottom one, to the second one, initial contacts to applicants, that's the prospective employee's decision. Oh, I heard about this job. No, I don't want it. I'm not going to apply. You work on that. You sell on that as hard as you can. The next jump, formal applicants to interviewees, from here up, it's all you. All the way to the last one, I guess. You decide from those who apply who you want to interview. And let's say that number is really high. 10 people apply and you interview all 10. You might go to your recruiter and say, hey, you're doing a great job finding people who we feel are qualified. That's why we're interviewing them. But chances are, if we're doing 100%, then you, recruiter, can be broader in who you get to apply. When you interview, some of those people are going to get an offer. If you interview 50 people and you only give 1 offer, that's frustrating. That's a waste of a lot of time. That means you interviewed a bunch of people that either A, weren't serious about it, or B, weren't qualified, which means somewhere early in the process, they got through. When you go to interviews, you don't want to be interviewing people, wasting time, who aren't interested, or trying to just get a counter offer or something. And you don't want to be interviewing people that aren't qualified. So if you can select well with your recruiter, if you can vet well with the application, saying, yes, this person meets the minimum qualifications, required qualifications, you interview more. Let's say you throw out, in this case, this example, there's 10 offers. This to me is the biggest metric probably that matters most. At this point, you've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. You've got time and money invested in what you're about to do, and that is write a job offer. So whenever students tell me, like, they get a job offer, they go, should I ask for more money? And I say, yes, ask for more money. Here's how to do it. And they say, well, what if they say no? What if they just throw out the offer? I go, it doesn't really happen, because they've gone through all this time and investment already. They're not just going to toss it. Usually, they're not just going to toss it out. They've selected you. They've said, amongst everyone, amongst our initial 100 contacts, we want to give you an offer. This metric matters. If you give 10 offers and you hire 5 people from those 10 offers, that's fine. That's good. You'll figure out what works for your company. If you give 10 offers and you only get 1, that tells you something. That tells you something probably about the compensation that you're offering. It's too low. Or if you give 10 offers and you get 10 people say, yes, I'm in. That might mean either A, you're paying too much, maybe on a negative side for you, or B, your process, your recruiting process is awesome and you're killing it. But don't just assume you're awesome if you get 10 out of 10. So that last one matters a lot, because the higher that ratio is, the higher to offer ratio, it's called the yield ratio. The higher your yield ratio, that means that you actually got kind of butt in seat the person that you wanted to get there. It wasn't them opting out, all that investment, right, paid off, and you got the person that you wanted. Usually you want that number as high as possible, but if it gets really high, just do a compensation analysis and make sure you're not overpaying people and squandering money unnecessarily, unless, of course, you want to. Anyway, that's how we evaluate. So we go through all this stuff, recruiting. We look at internal, external, independent contractors, PEOs, etc. But at the end of the day, this is the report card that tells us, yeah, you're recruiting well. You're getting enough people, enough applicants, etc. Or it can help identify problems that, again, at a macro level, systematically, that you go fix. And that's what we have for Chapter 6. So have a great day.